Hi everybody, this is Maureen Wong for Your Next Stamp. Today I have a start to finish video making this card, and it's what I call a shadow box card. I have seen another type of card called a shadow box card in Stampland, and this is just slightly different. This is a card that I learned about a really long time ago, years and years and years ago when I first started stamping. And what it is it's got a lot of dimension in it, and it folds down flat for mailing, and when your recipient gets it, they can just pop it up, and they have this really neat little shadow box card. And I'll have some still pictures for you to see what that looks like because my glasses are kind of flopping down into the back. But when it stands up straight, they stand up straight. So I'll show you a still of that. Okay, let's get started. Okay, to start with, I have the Your Next Stamps Clink stamp set and the matching die that goes with it. And I've already taken out the image with the two glasses, and I have it mounted on my stamp block. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up with Memento ink because I'm planning on coloring this with Copic markers, and Memento is my go-to. Okay. And this is just plain Georgia Pacific white cardstock from Walmart. Okay, and that's a very nice image. And I said I'm going to be coloring with Copics, but I'm actually coloring with a combination of Copics and Prismacolor pencils because for me these little ribbons down here are just so ultra fine. I'd never be able to do a good job with my Copic markers. So I have chosen to color the ribbon with Prismacolor pencils instead. And don't worry about mixing your coloring mediums. The Prismacolors and the Copic markers look fine together, so don't worry about that. Okay, so to start with, I am going to color some pink champagne, and I'm using the RV quadruple 0 to go all over the entire drink. On both of them. And what this is doing is just laying down a base coat to get the cardstock a little bit, I say wet, it's not actually wet of course because it's alcohol marker, but to get the area ready. This is RV52, and I'm just gonna put in some of this darker pink at the bottom. And then I'm going to come back in with my RV quadruple 0, and I'm just going to blend through where the ends of the RV52 were so that I have a seamless blend between the two pinks. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my C5 for the sparklers. The sparklers I've seen in my life have always been kind of a grayish silver. So I'm coming in with my C5 first. Then I'm going to use my C3. And you can see that I'm coloring it so that it gets lighter as it gets toward the end, and it's actually gonna be lightest because they are actually lit. And what I'm gonna do is come in with just a little bit of Y13 and dot these sparkles. Actually, I don't have to do all of them because they're not all going to cut, but I can't remember which ones are going to cut. And I'm just going to go a little bit out on the lines to show that it is yellow, and then there's going to be a little bit of that yellow color reflected back onto the sparklers. So there we go. And then for my Prismacolor pencils, I have Blue Lake is this darker color, and the lighter blue is powder blue. So I'm going to go ahead and color the ribbons. And let me start down here. And basically what I'm doing is just coming in where the ribbon turns, or I don't know if turn is the right word for it, where it's kind of spiraling. And so there's a little smaller area. So I'm coming in all those smaller areas, and anywhere they'd be a shadow, kind of a shadow area with my darker blue, and on the other one as well. And even though I'm using pencils, I'm still kind of going out of the lines if I'm not careful. And you want your pencil to be really sharp so that it can handle these really small detailed areas. And if you want to do it with Copics, I have seen this done with Copics, and good for you, you're braver than I am, because I don't even dare try and do this with my Copics. My hands are a little too unsteady, and I'd never get this done nicely. Okay, now I'm coming in with my lighter color, which is the powder blue, and I'm just gonna color in the rest of the ribbon, and I'm going over that darker blue area, and it blends it all together. I love colored pencils. They're so easy to work with. Even without using odorless mineral spirits, it blends really nicely on its own. The quality of these pencils is really good. So the wax content in them helps blend them together, even without something like odorless mineral spirits or baby oil or Gamsol or whatever it is you might use to blend your colored pencil. You can just use one colored pencil to blend into the next, or if I wanted to, I could just put these two together and go over and blend them with a white, and that actually does a really nice job blending as well. So that is my colors. And by the way, this is for the Your Next Stamp Color and Sketch Challenge number 4. I'm going with the color challenge, and I have chosen for my colors to use the Petunia, which is a pink, Bubble Blue, and the Frosted Silver and the Dusk, which looks like a kind of a gray, and I'm trying to throw in a little bit of silver in there too. So that's where my color palette came from. The yellow I'm just kind of throwing in there because that is how they look when they're lit, I guess I gotta say. So what I'm gonna do is take the matching die now, and I'm going to line it up. And this one has a lot of parts, so it's kind of tricky to get in place. But there we go. And then I'm going to put a little bit of blue painter's tape, and I'm going to cut that, and I'll be right back. Okay, here's the finished die cut. I forgot one last thing I was going to do. I have my clear Wink of Stella pen, and I'm going to go all over the pink champagne with it. And that is going to give it more of a bubbly kind of appearance. And make sure I get up that top part too. It's really hard to see on camera, I think, but in person it's a really nice touch. Now, let me see if you can see that. No, I guess not. Well, yeah, take my word for it. Okay, for the next part of this video, I'm going to be using some pattern paper, and it's from the My Mind's Eye 6x6 paper pad. It's called Metallic Designer Cardstock Paper, and it's the Metallic Necessities. And I've picked out a couple of papers that I want to use. And I also cut the base of my shadow box card. Okay, I have this little sheet here that tells me how I cut my cardstock. The length of this is the 11 inches of the cardstock, so you just cut it in half at 4 1/4, and you have this length left, and then you're going to go ahead and score it. Actually, it's this way. Let me zoom out. Okay. So the first score here is at 1 1/4, then the next score is at 5 1/4, then 6 1/2, then 10 1/2. And so that leaves this 1/2 inch, which was left over for your 11. And that is the base of our shadow box card. And then these two pieces of pattern paper I cut 4 1/8 inch tall and 3 7/8 inch wide to fit into the squares here. The square shape here, that is the front and back of the card, is sized at 4 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches tall. So that's why the funny measurements. I just did a little bit smaller on all sides. And this small dotted paper is going to be my inside back panel, and this big dotted paper is going to be my front panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it this way, and this is actually my front. You can see how that's going to fit. And what I've done is I've picked out two square dies from my collection. One is just slightly bigger than the other, and I'm going to use the larger one on my paper first. I'll get that position where I want it, and then tape it down. Make sure that's straight. And then I'm going to go die cut this out. I'll be right back. Okay, and I'm going to carefully take off that blue painter's tape. And you can see now that I've got a nice square window cut out of my front paper. So what I'm going to do is lay that down on the front of my card. And I'm now going to take the smaller square and center that inside the square hole that I just made. And then I'm going to take off this pattern paper, being careful not to move my die. And I'm going to tape this down. And now I'm going to run this card base through my die cutting machine. Okay, there we go. And again, carefully remove the painter's tape so that we don't rip our card base. And then we have a nice little square window. Oops, that didn't cut all the way through. Let me just get my scissors. I think I had the setting on my die cutting machine too low, and it didn't cut out the window properly. You can actually go back with the die again and run it through your die cut machine again, and it should cut it, or you can just take a scissors or an X-Acto knife and finish doing the job like that. Not perfect, but it will do. And by doing that, you can see how your pattern paper makes a frame, and there's a little bit of white frame on the inside. It's kind of hard to tell with this pattern paper because it has a lot of white area, but basically you have a bit of the frame inside that's showing through the pattern paper. So what I'm going to do is set this aside for now, and I'm going to work on my inner piece. Okay, this is the inner piece that is going to hold up our champagne glasses, and all it is a strip of the same white cardstock, 5 inches long by 3/4 of an inch tall, and I scored it a 1/2 inch in from each end. And what that's going to mean is it's going to fit perfectly into the inside of the card. And the reason why I made it 3/4 of an inch tall is I measured this front panel that was left after I cut out the hole, and this was almost an inch, so I didn't want to make my strip an inch tall, otherwise it'd be sticking out over the bottom edge of this. So I made it 3/4 of an inch so that you won't be able to see the, I don't know what this is called, the support, the inside support. And so now I'm going to start assembling my card. First I have my dotted paper, and this is going on the inside. And make sure you have it in the right direction because it only sticks in one way. It's not an exact square, although it kind of looks like it. So that's my back piece, and then I'm going to take my champagne glasses and I'm going to get a little bit of, this is just tacky glue, and I'm going to put a little bit of tacky glue on the bottom of the glasses and stick that to the inside support. And let me put it inside my card and make sure that's where I want it. Yeah, that looks good. So I'll just let that dry. And then I can start to assemble my box. Let's go and do the front. The front pattern paper panel. Okay. I'll make sure that is lined up correctly. Okay, and then we can go ahead and assemble our card base. And what you can do is you can actually hold it up like this and stick it together and hope that it's square. But one thing I like to do is you just hold this side down and you fold this piece over it, and it should give you a perfectly square box card that will fold either way. So that's the easy way to do it. And then what I'm going to do is just put some of the tacky glue on these two little tabs on our inside support piece. Oh, and you know what I did is I forgot to do the sentiment, so let's get that. Okay, here's my idea. Because this surface is not completely flat because of the edges of the paper on the inside, since I forgot to stamp it here, you're learning from my mistakes again. I have this little mini cutting mat, and I actually haven't used it that much for cutting yet, so it's got a very smooth surface, and I'm just going to stick the corner of that into my card, and that gives me a really nice flat surface to work on. And I'm only going to be stamping right in the middle, so it doesn't matter that there's a little bit of unsupported edge here. But I decided I wanted to use the Holiday Cheers sentiment from the set. So So let me get that out. And as I said in previous videos, my go-to ink for stamping sentiments is VersaFine Onyx Black. I just love the finish that it gives. Okay, so that's all inked up, and now I'm going to try and center that and stamp it down. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to try not to touch that because it does take just a little bit to dry. But what we can do is, now we can put this inside piece in, and you can either go from the top or from the bottom. And basically what you're going to do is stick it in, and then you're going to stick the support tabs to the side somewhere where you want it. And actually, you know what, I have another little tip I'm gonna do here before I glue that in. I actually cut another one of the same die cut out of the same white cardstock. The Georgia Pacific is actually pretty thin, and it might not hold up well. This is a pretty tall die cut. So what I'm gonna do is just put some glue on this blank die cut. Not too much, I don't want it all squeezing out all over the place, but I do want it secure. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this one right over that blank one. And because it's a liquid glue, I have a little bit of playtime to move it into place so that they are exactly on top of each other. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the double die cuts, and once the glue has dried, the glue itself will give a little more body to the die cut, and it'll have more weight and be a little bit stronger so that it can stand up nicely inside of your card. And since my glue on the edges is drying, let me put some more glue. And now we're going to stick that in again. And where you want to stick it is up to you. You can stick it way far back, close to the back wall if you want your glasses to look like they're up near to the background. Or you can put it somewhere in the middle and then they'll look like they're floating a little bit closer to the front. So the main thing is you just want to get it in there kind of evenly and straight. So you can see those two side tabs from the support were glued in. And now, well, when I lay it down, of course, the champagne glasses are going to flop to the back. But when it's sitting upright, you can see that it's standing up pretty nicely in there. And that's the card. And I will show you a still shot again of the card so you can see what it looks like standing up straight. I hope you enjoyed this video and this project, and we'll see you over at yournextstamp.com. Thanks for watching.